I'd like to welcome everyone to the first OC Saturdays, as I'm calling it, where we take and draw someone's original character. Either, either, it, either it's gonna be either it's gonna be one of mine or someone else's. And this first episode, we're gonna be doing it with one of my own characters, and it's gonna be a character that I'm still gonna be using as a pseudo avatar. We're gonna do an entire background image for him, and I have him designed out, and he's technically gonna be in this image as sort of almost like a pseudo magic card type of thing. And you may be asking why I'm doing everything really blurry right off the bat. That's because this is the background, and I'm gonna go in and this first like background thing, this is way in the back. This is like super way in the back. This is so way in the back. It's like it's like ultra way in the back, because our character is actually going to be in the front, and he's going to be our focus. And I'm working on a thumbnail I did in a Patreon exclusive video, one of the few exclusively exclusive videos I'm doing. And yeah, this is our super far away. This is a super far away bridge. And the reason we're doing it all blurry is because of the pseudo camera focus that would happen. Now, I'm trying to do this with with Windows still having what do you call it, an arrow on, instead of my usual keep arrow turned off, because it causes things to get a little jumpy, like especially when I'm doing things, and it's like, yeah, it's not actually great to have arrow turned on for this, but I'm turning it on because it just looks better on the screen, because you get to see all of the menus. And it's one of those weird things that just kind of happened with this particular version of Photoshop that I'm stuck with for now. And the way like Arrow kind of handles it, and the way it records, with that. But yeah, we're gonna come back to doing a solid brush. And yeah, the thumbnail I designed out in a previous video, which is the exclusive one for patrons. Also, his the character's design I did as like this giant 4-hour video that is strictly patrons only as well. I'm not going to be doing that a lot. I'm not going to be doing a lot of patron only videos, but I am going to be doing them from time to time. Like I said in that intro video, my Patreon announcement video, I gotta have a carrot somewhere. Yeah, this background is supposed to be sort of an urban landscape, urban-ish landscape, with a lot of snow going on. And we're gonna have some back and forth to kind of get this. This is more foreground snow, so it's gonna be, you know, brighter. It's gonna be more in focus, brighter. Um, we're not really doing like a super detailed background though, because we want the character to be our focus. And I'm still even if I trying to think and talk and draw all at the same time. I'm good at multiclassing. Well, I am good at multiclassing. I'm good at multitasking too, but yeah, it's like I can only do so much at one at any given time, and it's like I'm working my brain, using my mouth, and using my hands all at the same time. So I actually want to have another bridge in the foreground. Start a new layer. Yeah, I'm sort of getting into the let's use a bajillion layers style of painting, I guess you could call it, where it's like you do where you do a bajillion layers on your paintings just to keep everything separated. This is also putting a top on our image, and I kind of want to have that a little bit. Now the light source on sort of a snowier day, because it's cloudy, is going to be a lot more diffuse, but it is going to be from above. Also, this is still going to be like kind of way in the background still. I was just trying to get some lines in there to give it a little detail. Now, technically, like, I actually like this, the background we've got here, but, I think like, a couple closer like, I think, like, this building should be a lot Photoshop should be a lot closer to us, and we should actually see some. I think, oh man, it's like this is always like going straight from the sketch to this phase is always like, what am I doing again? Actually, hang on. This is also a thing that's going to happen a lot, is not liking a thing and then redoing it. Because, yeah, I wanted to, I kind of wanted to bridge up front more, but I think this is just going to have to be a, no. So the problem I'm having right now, and the thing I'm probably going to have to do to get some reference, is these are like way too thin to be buildings to me. And I think they look more round than flat-sided. So it's like I had to figure out what I'm actually going to be doing here with these. I always have the rulers on because it puts this extra line up here, and it helps me like delineate visually where in the hell the top of the screen is for me. Yeah, I may have to be getting to some. God damn it! I may have to be getting to some reference coming up here. Well, the other thing is in my thumbnail, we're going to have something sort of blocking the view coming up. So it's like, so it's like I don't actually know how much detail I need on. This should be more like that. I actually don't know how much detail I need for that, really. Yeah, that should actually be more along the lines of, no, wait. This is the other problem. I didn't do good perspective on anything because I was assuming I'd actually be seeing far less of the ground than I am. Okay, we're gonna do a small pause here, and then I'll be back. Okay, I know what I'm doing now. I was pretty okay in my assumptions in my brain as to what was going on in a more urban-y snowscape, but we're gonna. Yeah, you guys are seeing live. This is live-ish. Well, live for me. I done screwed up, and I'm gonna go back and work on it a little bit. So actually, wait. This is really how it happens. This is really how a lot of my design work goes, where I'm like, no, we got to go back. No, we got to go back. No, we got to go back. I do have reference out now. I'm not gonna copy exactly what's there. It's more to get it's more to get the proper like shapes down for what I'm working on here. I had to move something out of the way. I have a lot open right now, including the thumbnail, including just pieces of I have a thumbnail open. I have Google. Was that the thumbnail? Yeah, you could probably just see the thumbnail real quick in the navigator. I have Firefox open with the with a Google image search open. And it sort of got it on some wintry urban landscapes. So our light source for here, we're gonna have it mostly hitting. Like the bridge is getting lit, is getting lit above. So that means we're gonna have to have a little bit coming here and a little bit down here, but I'm mostly making it. Yeah, so this side is gonna get a little bit more lit up. And we're gonna go in and still with a very blurry brush. We're going all the way back to these blurry elements in the background, because the blurry elements in the background they're supposed to be way in the back. So we're keeping it blurrier. And right now what this is would be some sort of structure on the front of the building. Now, what's interesting about doing stuff like this is it doesn't really matter what this is. It could be windows, it could be a scaffolding. It really could be whatever, because what is essentially going on over here is, and I'm going to tone back the brightness a little bit, is this would be like this would be a street coming through here. Here, I hit the gate. So what would be going on here is this is a street kinda, and we're gonna have like the sidewalk. The sidewalk would be like that a little bit. I mean, the perspective's a little off because that's actually going like would be going like that. So I should probably tweak that top one, and then that would be like the street, and that would be its sidewalk. So that's like way back across the street, more or less. And then we'd have like our side of the street would technically be right here. So this is gonna be like maybe some frontage of a building, and then we have like a building here, and then a building here, and then this would be like a little gap in between, and then we have this bridge of some kind, and then this would be a building back here, and then you can see buildings back here kinda. But these I'm purposely keeping very I did that all in that layer, didn't I? Luckily I have a ton of undo levels. So that is our rough it's like a rough landscape of the city. But because it's looking like it's, oh, he's just doing a whole lot of blurry brush stuff, and that's kind of scrubbish. It should if I'm correct in my assumptions, once I put in the correct final elements, it should hopefully make some level of sense as to what's going on in this background. Because right now this is literally like pushed way back because I'm gonna have a like our figure's gonna be over here still, and it's gonna be, well, he's obviously not gonna be having that pose leaning this way when everything's going this way, but I'm gonna use it as the basis of my pose. I think I can just click over to it, and you can see the thumbnail up here. Let's pull it on screen. So that's our thumbnail. So we have all of this is going this way, and we have the bridges in the background. We're gonna have a sort of monster robot claw coming in. And actually I can see we're gonna have to pull this up, I think, and just try and keep it straight. Here, let's grab that dark. We'll go over all of that. I'm sort of also using the capture as some guide, as a bit of a guide for me to like, this needs to be bent that way, I think. Not that much. Because with the capture I can kind of see, like, gives me a different viewpoint of what I'm doing. So it's like, oh, I can kind of see some more errors. Like how this is kind of going like that. If there's one thing I've always thought Photoshop has lacked, it's a good, like, I know there is a perspective grid you can do in Photoshop, but I've always found the program just really, really lacking in help to get perspective. At least in like the earlier CSs, it's always been like, it's always had trouble with dealing with things like perspective and being able to like rotate your artwork. Alright, so this side of the street. I'm still going to work blurry, and then I'll go back in... So wait, I had to maybe redraw some perspective lines. Hang on. This is also another thing where it's like, okay, let's get... So our vanishing point would be like right there. I'm not perfectly accurate with this. I'll admit, like I'm horrible with perspective. It's always been a challenge for me to get it at least looking okay. So it's like I usually, and despite the fact I love urban landscapes, it's like I usually just fudge it as best I can. Like I'm a total cheater with artwork. I will cheat as much as I can while doing artwork. Yeah, I believe we're up to about a half hour. I had to stop and start the record to get that reference image. So, yeah, we so it's gonna be a little rough on figuring out my time here. So I think I can turn that off now. So yeah, I love urban landscapes. It's just I've always been really bad at doing them. And part of what I want to do with with this and with Patreon is hopefully this will give me the incentive to do better with them. Just do better in general as well. So we're gonna grab that and we're gonna put some snow out. Okay, so now I think I can go and solid some stuff up. So like I said, our light is coming this way, so actually across the street is still going to be all across the street. It's still going to be all a blur. Now we can start to solid some stuff up. I'm actually going to leave the glow on that because this is like a little... That's like a little ledge, and it's like, oh, that's obviously... There's obviously some snow sitting on this little ledge up here, so it's like, oh, I'll leave that glow in because the light that's sort of like right here and coming down would definitely be hitting that snow a bit. So I've never thought Photoshop has ever had good tools for perspective, at least in the versions I've used. For newer versions, I'm sure they've had to have put something in for it. I know that in CS3, I think, which is what I'm using right now, I think there is some sort of vanishing point. Is it? Yeah, a vanishing point filter, but I've never actually really gotten to using it. so it's like I don't know what its quality is, and I'm just gonna assume it's not fantastic. Some of the images I'm looking at are far less blurry than I've got going on, but I'm very much doing some artistic stuff here. Like I'm making sure that like our light's there, so it's gonna diffuse the edge of that building. And the whole thing is, this is just background for our characters we're going to put in here. Because it is technically characters. And the first we're going to do is this foreground character. Now here's the thing about doing something from off screen. This doesn't actually matter what the perspective is. Because the whole thing is, like, when you're taking, if you were to take a picture of a person standing way in the foreground on a street, you would still end up with, like, a lot of area around them, and some like a street's really big, and even with snow on it, it's like, oh, you get a lot of space around people. So we're basically making this up as we go along. So it's like we can have this thing, and he would be standing like he would be standing here, and our hero is going to be like here. So it's like this guy's hand is way in the foreground, and what we're going to be doing with this hand is we're actually going to put a lot of detail into it, and then we're gonna take and completely destroy it with a blur, because it's also like, this is the opposite type of camera focus, where this is so in the foreground, like this would be right in front of the lens that would be taking this picture, so it would also diffuse out if we're focusing on our hero character. I have no idea what the design for whatever this is. Some sort of robot, I think. I might Phyrexian it up a bit, but yeah, it's some sort of robot claw thing. Color is maybe not going to be a thing on this image, only because I feel like I've got enough. Okay, something way darker than that. I think I've got enough going on here that color for now is not going to be a huge thing. I also do have a thing for black and white images. It's kind of funny that not everyone likes them, but it is one of those things where it's like, oh, that's in black and white. That looks really cool. When I say Phyrexian it up a bit, I mean make it kind of spiky and a little gross. So we can really, like, and spiky and a little gross means we can really have fun with this too. So it's like we can start to like put just webbing in here where it's like, oh, this is wiring or shards of something that's just in here. Yeah, having arrow running is not as bad as I thought it'd be. I mean, it still is like, if I go really fast on something, it's still, the cursor gets a little jumpy, but for the most part, it's actually not that bad. And it looks a hell of a lot better on the record. That's why the menus weren't whole in previous videos. It was literally Microsoft, like, because I'm using OBS, it's like, it's recommended you disable arrow for recording a window capture because it slows your system down. And it's like, well, my system isn't that bad. Okay, I am actually going to merge these together so we can and I think I'm maybe gonna hit the block transparent pixels. We'll see. So this would be our, like, we would definitely have some sort of reflected light as well, because snow is very, very bright and very, very reflective. So we would technically also have a more diffuse but still very prominent reflection onto this very like kind of metally thing, although it's getting a little more like bone-ish. Although I think bone-ish is probably how you say bonus with a speech impediment. Or maybe when you're kind of boned, you're just bone-ished. Boned? No, that'd be boned-ish. That doesn't work. Ooh, didn't want that. Yeah, I don't even know what's going on here anymore. It's just like, let's get some shapes. Shapes! Shapes are the best thing. Best thing when you're just creating something from the ground up is just shapes. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna keep this open more. Just we're just gonna have to redo that, I think. It's the only problem with doing it as sort of merging all these layers together is sometimes you just gotta erase and start over. Oops. These little flecks in here to get rid of. I've gotten quiet. I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign. It's like obvious evil robot claw. It's obviously evil. Now, like I said before, I'm putting detail in it, but it's detail to sort of it's detail that I'm gonna just obscure later on. It's sort of like a pseudo camera trick is what I'm going for with it. Yeah, there just isn't much to say about what this is right now. It's a menacing robot claw. So it's like, yeah, I think we know what the intention and design of this should be. Spiky. Spiky and kind of gross. It's actually, I think, the definition of a blue shell as well. We are dropping that back just a little bit. Make it a bit more consistent with the surrounding bits of it. I also think, given that the light is coming and hitting it here, we're gonna get hard highlights on this end, but the back of the hand is basically gonna have nothing. So I think it would have more. It would mostly be in darkness, and you'd more get the reflected light off, say, the snow on the ground hitting it. We can take and come in here, and we can lean up the pinky a bit. Can start putting some little, we're gonna black that out basically, and then come in here and start putting in some light. Now the line work here doesn't need to be perfect. We can have it be kind of jagged and rough, because this is obviously some sort of thing that has seen some stuff. It's been in some fights, so it's a little roughened up a bit. It's a little pockmarked. Like, we can even go in and just literally pockmark it a bit. And we can take and put the darks around there, and yeah, it's very much a little on the battered side. I spent a long time doing this damn claw. Okay, so that's our foreground element. Now we do duplicate it, so we just have a copy of it. And what we're going to be doing here is do filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And we are going to do it, because we're going to do it about that much. And now that's our foreground, that's our background. Whoops. This is our mid-ground. Now there, actually, I just realized I have all these lines scribbled in over here, and it's like, oh, I should probably, real quick, we're gonna go in and just diffuse those back. That was supposed to be some sort of, I think, brickwork on my part, but instead we're just gonna go in and do like, because that's obviously some sort of doorway, and I think I'll put in a, that is a quote-unquote window. But again, this is all background stuff, so it's like, yeah, I'm using a, okay, just, yeah, Photoshop. One thing, I'm probably gonna change over the video in a second, but before I get into the character, one thing that has always annoyed me about Photoshop is when you like push off the top of the screen, like if you go like especially if you're doing the marquee tool and you just push on top of the screen. I've never understood why, and there might be an option to turn it off. I've never actually liked that it does that. Or at the very least, that it does it to the sensitivity it does it. Okay, that's looking much better over there. It's definitely looking better over there. I don't mind my brush stroke showing through on this building in particular. It's still in the background though. We still want to keep it in the background. So we have our background, we have our foreground. Now we're going to do our midground, which is going to be our character, and he's going to be completely in focus as opposed to everything else. Hey everyone. This is doing our character. Didn't mean it like that. So what we're doing here, we're basically doing what we normally do with a character, in that we're going to, first off, we're going to grab like a 50% gray. We're gonna do what we normally do with a character and do like the light dark grayscale. On top of them, but we're graying them out here because the gray is going to be our pseudo silhouette we're going to work with. Here, I have to do one thing real quick. It's rare for me to actually just turn all that off, but because I need the flat gray, that's what we're going to be doing. I just realized I didn't actually look at my screen to see how my capture was going. To make sure my webcam didn't like move at all, and like start the video and it's just the ceiling fan. Like, hey everyone, how you go? How's it going? We're drawing a day and it's just Yeah, and I just realized I could do a lock transparent pixels on this. Doing a lasso of this would also be viable, or pen tooling it, but I'm sort of trying to go, like, I don't need to be super accurate with this because a lot of what the, like, sides of his character are going to be changed as we go forward. Specifically his belt. Because I don't know exactly what's going to be on that belt. Oh right, actually, he should be behind the claw. But yeah, even if you look here, you can kind of tell, thanks to our pseudo camera tomfoolery, that our character is... I might make him bigger, actually. We can do that. Like, our character is, at least in my eyes, the focus here. So, now we can do our... start to lay in the light of his face. So, whoops. Let's lay in the light of his face. Our other... Yeah, my brush, the brush I use is literally just a round brush with smoothing on and then other dynamics on, both turned to pen pressure. And I try to do everything just with a brush, because and I just realized that I have the light source behind him. This is all gonna be BS lighting on my part. It technically means he's being lit entirely by... His face would be lit entirely by, like, the snow beneath him, reflecting up and hitting his face. So we're not sticking with what our light source should technically be, which is, you know, back here. But I'm gonna use the excuse that, you know, it's light that's diffused into the sky. So what's happening is, you know, the light would get caught in the clouds and scattered through the clouds. So it's still a light source that's above him. Besides, like I always joke, I have a creative license and I'm not afraid to use it. That's like the artistic equivalent of technobabble I just did there. It's like, yeah, the light's, you know, it's diffusing through the clouds, so it's above them. Yeah, that's it. I totally wasn't thinking about... Yeah, I totally wasn't, you know, making up a light source for an image that didn't have the character in it, and then... and then screwing up when I actually put the character in it. Yeah, the other reason I kind of want to make sure, or not use, lock transparent pixels is I'm going to be playing with, like, the shape of the character as I go along. See, if I were someone who did, like, really tight inks for drawings, I would absolutely, like, lock transparent pixels on him. But I'm very much not a tight inker type. I mean, I'm sure that's abundantly obvious to anyone who's watched my videos that, like, yeah, I'll try to do... I'll try to do tightness sometimes, but I'm very, very, very painterly. I'm very like, let's go back and forth on this. Let's do like let's try to use edges a lot. I'm very much, very very much in a more sketchy and painter type rather than a tight inker type. I mean, don't get me wrong. That's I'm not saying that's definitely not saying I'm better or that's a superior way of doing things. That's just how I've tended to do things. And I mean, it has its there are advantages and disadvantages to doing it like that. The main disadvantage is people that aren't like artist types will sometimes not get why sketchiness is interesting, or they'll be like, oh man, he draws really rough, or it's usually in some sort of, he's a little rough but he's okay, and it's like that's sort of a, I wouldn't say it's a backhanded compliment, but it's definitely in the mode of like, oh, I have it's definitely in that mode of a compliment that's sort of like, was that a compliment? I also don't want to, one thing I want to make sure with the characters, I don't get smirky with his expression, because I tend to do that with characters sometimes, is give them a little smirk. And this character is definitely not a smirking character, at least not as a default facial expression. So I do have a character that is in a smirk most of the time. That's sort of his character. This guy has sort of bags under his eyes. Oh, I just realized, since I'm not making that video public, it's gonna be patrons only. I did a whole design video, and I may make it public if, like, in the far future, but I did a whole video on what I wanted. Okay, that's actually not that good looking from that. So way back. I did this really, really long and probably boring, except to sort of people who are interested in that type of esoteric video. A very long design video on what I wanted out of this character and why I made the design choices I did. And you're probably looking at my face and then maybe giving his face a look and being like, wait a minute, that's kind of close to you, James. And it's like, well, yeah, because I wanted to make a character that's sort of an author avatar type, because like he wouldn't be completely me. He'd be like a laundry list of things I like, in addition to having some features I have. So he's a bit Mary Sue-ish, but it's like that's entirely built in and by design. Because I kind of want to have it be an avatar, so it's like, oh, I might as well make him look like me. So it's definitely taking elements of my, another piece of dust. It's definitely taking some features from my face and putting them into into the character. So it's like that's why he's got, you know, the goatee and sort of a fuller mouth. And you know, sort of giant bags under his eyes. And the long hair. And then his design elements for his clothing and stuff, they're supposed to be reminiscent of a kind of warrior tech type of look. But it's there's actually a lot going on in there. Why he has the fur and why he has the coat in the first place and his silhouette, and there's all sorts of stuff going on in the in this character where it's like, oh, a lot of the decisions are gonna be lost on people seeing this video, because I don't know that I'm gonna do a public release of the design video, but patrons will definitely know what I'm talking about. Like why I can talk about some of it. His hair design choices are sort of a combination of the 80s and 90s. Like he's got this center part thing going on, which is very 90s, and then he has what I call Legend of Zelda hair for his sideburns coming out here. That's why he has these sideburn hair things. And then his hair has these spikes to keep a silhouette, so you know it's him. Woohoo! Don't need to go full Sephiroth there. Oh yeah, one thing I was gonna do, I think I might throw color on him. But we are gonna do black and white for now, and then use it as the banner image for the Patreon page. It's going to be in black and white for now. I am probably going to take it to color. I did decide something to do with his hair color, which I think I mentioned in the previous in the design videos. I was unsure about what to do for his hair. I maybe mentioned it once in passing that I had an idea about, damn it, about his hair, and I'm like, oh, I know what it's going to be now. It's color related, and it's not going to show up in the black and white. Just to give his just to put a little variation and make his hair sort of like a sign that he's not just a straight up normal person. Well, futuristic space elf person. He sure as hell has a more defined chin than I do. If anyone wants to know what I'm self-conscious about with my own body image, my lack of chin is definitely high on that list. I mean, it's not noticeable in the in the video down here, but and it's also not as noticeable because I have facial hair, but I actually have a very pronounced overbite. So I get like if I don't have facial, like I've shaved my beard off before, and I did it before I went down to this goatee, and yeah, it was very much very much a weird experience for me because I got to see what my chin looks like without facial hair, and it's like I'm like, and I was like, oh my god, I have zero chin. Looks like someone cut the bottom of my face off. So yeah, I am actually kind of self-conscious about it too. We're only 20 minutes in and we got a face. However, I think I am going to act like he does have a bit of our light that's right here coming around his head. So we're going to get a blurish brush, and we're just going to tap the back of his head. And a little bit up here as well. This ear down. Now his hair is actually going to be back there still. So it was probably a dumb idea to do that. Let me just gray up that ear a bit. But yeah, we can always tweak that. But we got to make damn sure he stays mostly in focus, because he is our middle ground. He is our camera focus point. Yeah, so the painterliness is one of the reasons I use just this one brush and just resize it as I go, is because I like having the ability to sort of control how much value is put into something, whether it's color or grayscale. And I like that I can control it with just tapping the pen very lightly to get lighter pen pressure, as opposed to having to sample a piece of gray or something. I've also never been big on the way hard brushes look in Photoshop. That's not to say I want to use a blur brush in Photoshop completely. I would much rather just have this sort of let's control your opacity with the pressure of your touch type of thing. And for some people they don't like that. Some people like it more. It's all up to you for how you want to use your tools. I may actually take out this like brightness on the top of his head, because I had to remember his hair is actually black, so it's like, yeah, it might be shiny, but it's still black. Now I will, however, take my hard edge eraser, try and get that to a point. Now, you know what? We're just gonna, like, that's my rough line where I want the hair, but the fur. Technically, it is his hair as well, but we're actually just gonna go and fill that in with the black. Yeah, also, speaking of the space elf thing, that's why his eyes are his eyes are black instead of white. It's that space elf thing going on. I mean, I wasn't actually speaking of it right then, but that's the reason for it. Guys have eyelashes. Well, you can put eyelashes in. And tone them back just a little bit. His character is also a little stockier than I have him drawn here. Not like Wolverine stocky, but still stockier. Excuse me while I stretch my back. The only thing about working with because I'm like, my Wacom is actually standing upright, so you can actually see me you can occasionally see my pen, and like my camera is actually on my tablet, so it's like this means I'm kind of a little slumping right now, just because of how I'm sitting in my chair. But I'm working upright, so it does mean that I have to occasionally stop and just stretch my back and crack my back and move a little. So his shoulders, do I have that drawing? So his shoulders, there we go. Shoulders are gonna be leathery like that, with a shine. And plated still. You know what, we're gonna do this all in a new layer, because I think it's time we just put a new layer in. Yeah, that's all it takes to get that, to get a shine going. And then we take a like a high white, and we just put it right there. Just tap a little bit on that, a little bit on that. That is his shoulder done. Yeah, and the plates are actually reversed of how you do proper plating on like a legitimate piece of armor. So now we're actually gonna go and put a new layer here, because this will be his arm in the back. And I hope no one minds that this video is going to be really long, or at least this is going to be a longer video series, because we're putting a lot of detail into a character from almost nothing, which means we're going to spend a bit of time on it. I'm still going to try to go fast, because I always do try to go fast while doing this. So I should also point out that it seems like I just have him with like a glove on or something, gloves on or something. No, he's got some extremely obviously artificial arms going on. They've kind of got muscle, but it's not real muscle. They just have the appearance of it. It's sort of like a very stylized muscle look, but they're also very, very metallic-ish looking. It's funny that I have him battling a Phyrexian-ish robot from the looks of it, and it's like, oh, he has, you know, artificial, like very artificial looking limbs, and it's like, oh yeah, there's no conflict of interest here. But in all fairness, his are vaguely human looking. I haven't decided, well, I should say I haven't decided if I want to share if he actively did this, or if this is a result of someone else's action and he decided to take advantage of it to do artificial limbs. That's probably because I'm like, do I want to actually say that? Do I want that to be part of his character? Or should I make it he just took advantage of the situation? Okay, I think I can actually go into here and pull out a lot of the gray that would be around the sides, just so it's a little cleaner around his hand. Yeah, that's gonna stay. That's a sort of piece of his belt. I don't quite know how it attaches to the back, but yeah, he has like an elaborate system of belts over his coat that are sort of along the lines of a utility belt. So I'm going to point out something here. OC Saturdays, we're just starting with sort of the masturbatory author avatar character. Next week, we're going to be doing something completely different. I already have the idea in my head. I just have to do it. And it's going to be a fun one. Sort of going to be more sort of going to be a very tongue-in-cheek one. I just realized it's almost a meme reference, whether or not he did this to himself. Just asking, just saying like, I didn't ask for this, and it's like, well, maybe this character did ask for this. Deus Ex Human Revolution. Oh, or no, yeah, is it Human Revolution that's the one that's out now, or is that the one coming out? Whatever. Deus Ex, I need to play more than 15 minutes of that game. I got to about the 15-minute point and I was like, yeah, this is fun, but I'm gonna go play another game. What's funny is it's one of those games where it's like everything in it is like, oh, this would be made for my interests, and I just never got around to playing it for a long period of time. I thought about recording it from a gaming channel, but like, so, and it may be with Patreon happening that I can do some more games that I normally wouldn't do under an ad system, because it's a Square Enix game, excuse me, and they're one of those companies that's sort of like, well, we don't really want people making money off of, you know, recording our games, so we're not gonna allow it, or it's at least it's a gray zone company, so it's like I've never actually considered doing their stuff for the gaming channel. I mean, not to get into I don't want to get into talking about ad revenue on YouTube, because it always, even in my years when I'm like, oh, I gotta take this into consideration when I'm I gotta take it into consideration when I'm gonna, you know, record a game. It's like, it's always sounded a little like, not whiny or false, but it's always one of those things that just sounds like only it just sounds like one of those things that someone doing something for just completely for profit would say, rather than doing something for enjoyment. It's kind of a wonky thumb right now. We may have to go back and visit it later. Yeah, I don't know on. I should have actually drawn the palm of his hand before doing this. Okay. The next thing we're gonna put in is his chest piece, and this is gonna be sort of in the similar vein of like his shoulder. There's a lot of black on his character as well. sort of his like Under Armour. And it doesn't actually need a lot of detail because it's gonna immediately get covered up by another layer. I just needed to see. I just needed it in here because there's actually, and I almost forgot about this, and it was a key. It was a key aspect of his character that I debated on doing, because he actually has a cloth robe. We're gonna do this side first. He actually has a cloth robe on as a layer of his clothing, because part of his character was going to be to have layers. We can take this and we can knock that stuff out. Because if you remember back in my, or if you've seen it, I shouldn't say if you remember it, but in my first video I posted, I sort of talked a lot about the philosophy of Magic the Gathering colors and how it relates to real life. I mean, it was a super nerdy it's like a super nerdy conversation with myself, and I used it sort of as a illumination guide to my own philosophies. And it's like, blue-green was big on that. And part of this character, gotta crack my knuckles. Ugh. Sorry to anyone that doesn't like that sound. And part of this character's philosophy was to kind of combine that as well. So you end up with a character that kind of has like a wizardish feel mixed with a character from like a wilds area. And that was sort of where I got the, we're gonna do this in its own layer. This is where I kind of got the fur idea from. So I want to lasso I'm gonna lasso his hair spikes out. Just oops. We do a layer via copy because we don't want to have like that seam that sometimes happens with selections. And then we're gonna take and we're gonna put these hair spikes above, at least for now, and then we can go back and sort of like, you can see there's a little spike of that, the cowl he has is coming through there, but and like there's a little extra shadow bit there, but we can take and freely work on the fur, at least on this side for now, fur of his jacket. We can actually come up here and clean that out, and we could probably knock that out as well. Make that a little pointier. Great. So fur, I have two approaches to. One is to kind of do it the way I did hair up there, where I just do the highlights and stuff. And we're going to try it out. The other way, the way people would probably chide me for doing, is I'd put the lights and darks in, and then I'd go with the smudge tool. And smudge it around. So the thing about the fur we're gonna do first is we're actually gonna put the we're gonna get very scribbly and put some darks in, and then we're gonna put the lights on top of it, and we'll see how it looks. It's fur is one of those things where it's like you might you have to kind of, at least in my mind, give up a little bit of your integrity by going to the smudge brush to actually just get it moved around and looking a little, poofier. And it's something I've done when drawing and painting wolves in Photoshop. Is I don't try to make it a smudge painting, because those just look bad and cheap and corny. But I do it a little bit to get the shapes of the fur in there. Because the thing about fur is it's like hair, where you don't need to draw every single stroke of the fur, but it's still one of those things that requires a lot of it's one of those things where you can get away with doing something simple to get it in there, but it's one of those things that's also it's just gonna take a little work to get it looking relatively fur-ish. And I think this is actually going to be a combination of just working it over with my regular brush, and then working it over with a bit of the smudging. Now the alternative, I actually think, for a brush to do this would be to take and do under shape dynamics, turn size to fade, and then make it like 100. Let's do 255. 200. Okay, so this is another way that I think would work. Is you kind of, this is the let's do every single follicle method, because if you put a fade on your brush, it restricts it to a certain length, and will actually, if you do it on the size dynamic, it'll actually turn it into a sort of pen stroke. I actually used that for a while, way back when I was first getting into Photoshop painting. I actually used a brush that kind of did that, where it was it looked very much like a paint stroke, but the problem with that brush was it also made things look a little blurry, and I got chided for it by a professional artist at a con that I took my portfolio to. I kind of got chided for having this one image where I did a very I actually should do it again, because I'm kind of proud of it, proud of the concept. I did a cookie, a literal chocolate chip cookie, and I did it with a super painter style, and I made it look like a portrait of a cookie, and I was like, oh, this is kind of a funny idea. I mean, in retrospect, it's kind of not, but at the same time, I still like the idea, and I might go in and do it. But I used that brush on it, and I got chided for it because it came out looking a little on the blurred side. Because the brush itself was it was just, I can't paint it now. I could probably pull it up and just look at it, because I still have it. But, yeah, it was very much a... Yeah, I mean, it was a cool brush for what it was, but it was sort of there was the main brush shape, and then there were little specks everywhere. and when you did the stroke, it would be like there'd be the centerpiece, and then there'd be these specks around it. And what happened was that made it look a little blurry. So, I mean, this sometimes gets you a blurry result, the brush I'm using right now. That's only if I do a lot of strokes on top of each other and next to each other. So it's like, yeah, I understand why this gets a little blurred sometimes, but it's also sort of by design for it to do that. The reason this gets blurry is you have like that, and then you kind of have like a to it, but I'm actively like aware of this when I use it. It's like right now I do know this is going to diffuse things a little bit, and it is a little Bob Rossian. Now that I'm looking, like I'm watching Bob Ross, and I'm like, oh, he does a lot of, especially for things that go into the background, he does a lot of diffusing of his artwork. So it's like I don't actually feel as bad for kind of doing that myself. I mean, I'm no Bob Ross, but yeah, that's sort of something he does a lot in it. I think he says, now hypnotize it a little bit. You're also going to hear me tapping a lot because I am actually tapping on my tablet. Notice on the ends of the fur I do want it like a little more pronounced, that there's a bit of spikiness to it. See, the thing about the center of the fur is where it's thickest, so you're not actually going to see as much detail there. So yeah, it is a lot like hair. It's like if you get in here, you can actually see a lot of crisscross and brush strokes. Okay. Oh, speaking of Bob Ross, I have thought about doing some very Bob Ross style pieces in Photoshop. I've sort of been puzzling out if I could actually do them. So, welcome back to part 3. I debated keeping this in because of what is going to be involved in it, because it's sort of a cheat that some people may actually find really cheaty. Because what we're doing with this now is putting the fur on the other side. And here's one of the great things about Photoshop that makes me just like not miss okay, Cavo just messaged me, and the Skype blink distracted me. Cavo. Um, One of the things I like about Photoshop, as opposed to doing traditional media, is there are a ton of little things you can do to cheat like that. And like, we can go in now and make sure that the fur kind of looks a little different on both sides, even though it's basically the same thing flipped over. And yeah, we can move on from here. And it's like, I just saved myself a ton of work getting that fur flipped and duplicated. Now there is like the black edge on this, but I think that'll be fine because we have a black shoulder pad right here, and it should just blend in. It should just blend in once we get our the shoulder pad actually in there. Yeah, I'm actually taking the grayscale out from behind that. I may have to pull the fur down a bit, I think. Just because it's not that high on the other side. Here and just make sure this is all masked off. I don't know why the word mask was giving me trouble. Okay, gotta make sure that's all masked off, and we can come back to doing our brush strokes. So now this side is probably where we're gonna have to cheese it up a bit and put in our not put in use our smudge brush a bit. Yes, we're gonna have to smudge a little bit, but it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Don't panic. It's not gonna look terrible, I hope, and it's not gonna be cheesy. I mean, it's gonna be a little cheesy, but it's not gonna be like Chester Cheetah cheesy. It's not going to be dangerously cheesy. That's the joke I'm getting at there. Just take a little bit. You can get a bigger brush, start putting lights in here. Now, he has this cowl on, and I think I'm actually going to have it go over the fur just a little bit on this side. When I say cowl, it's sort of like a scarf more than anything. It's not like a bandana, but actually a bandana is probably the closest closest thing to what this actually is. And it's not leathery or anything, so it's pretty matte. So we definitely don't want to have it be like as our there are highlights on it. Okay, so we're gonna just tap a bunch of white in here. Now, like I said, this is gonna be fine. Don't worry. We're just going to very slightly, very gently, maybe lower the strength a bit. We're gonna just give this a little. A little bit, just sort of move it around a bit, get it a little on the fuzzy side going up. Now here's the other trick. We hit finger painting and put a little white in there, and we can just tap in because that will add, that actually is one of the things I was thinking of doing for the Bob Ross style painting was this finger painting option, which we're going to look at right over here, adds in the color you have selected into the smudge. So I was actually thinking of using that as a tree brush. And I'm just going to do a little bit, so it's not like we have it in one area. I was thinking of using it as a sort of or it had to, actually over here it's like I had to do it multiple times because then that's sampling all layers. I was going to use it as the Bob Rossian tree brush, because if it's like that, it very much mimics a paintbrush. But it's one of those things where it's like you have to use it very, very sparingly, because if you just do it too much, you end up, I mean, there's no better word for it. It's very scrubby. It's very, very it's got a ton of potential to just go absolutely terrible. That's why I generally don't do it a lot, and I only, like right there, I only tapped it in a bit. Okay, now we're gonna go above our hair spike, because we gotta just paint in some black here, and we're gonna do a little shadow. And just pop that back in there, put a little shadow here, pop that back. Technically, his skin would be a little darker than the fur, but his ear would be above the fur. So that's why I did that. There. And we're just gonna put just a little touches of dark in here, and then we can go over with the light again, just to add a little bit of subtlety to the furry bits. And we don't want to. Oh no, I said the word furry, and I used it with bits. Oh no. So this is going to be our shoulder layer. And oh, I forgot to point out this area right here. I went ahead and did that during one of my breaks, only because I knew it wouldn't be, well, I wouldn't say it wouldn't be interesting, but it's definitely one of those things where it would have just been doing like black leather, and we did that with the shoulder pad already. And you can kind of see where all the strokes of the brush go in there. And I knew we were gonna get this this part in here. Now, you may be asking yourself, why does he have these giant 80s shoulder pads? That was part of the design video I did that's exclusive to my Patreon feed. I gave him I had a very distinct silhouette, which is a little lost in this picture where he has a very like I wanted to have him with a very readable silhouette so that um even looking at him far away you could kind of know it was him. And that silhouette came about as sort of giving him a figure eight figure. It's funny to say that for a guy, but yeah, he actually had a bit of an hourglassy thing going on, and it wasn't like he had the hourglass figure; it was his clothing that did. So his, and I knew it was going to be that going into this. So I knew he'd have these sort of bigger shoulder pads going on, and it is a little 1980s looking, but I mean, I don't know about you guys. I actually kind of like the big shoulder pad look on characters because the silhouette ends up being very readable and it actually looks pretty good. And his silhouette goes it's basically this is his top half and like that's his arm and then his bottom half is like this. And then you kind of get a little bit of his legs in there and then his head. So it's like I really wanted to have this very distinct very distinctive figure eight for his character. And then his head has his ears and his hair, so that adds on a readability to his design. Now actually that looks a little janky, so we're gonna darken that out. I should really start on this one first. So for doing something that's kind of leathery, or plasticky, or anything that's shiny and kind of curved, the way I tend to do it is we have this sort of highlight on the edge up here, and we have our dark. I hit F instead of D. We have sort of this dark right here, and this dark, I generally want to have a more solid top to it. And on this side, we do want to have more diffuse. And that's basically how we're going to do that shoulder. And I'm actually going to take a bit of a highlight and tap it in here. I think I am screwing up this part royally. So you know what? We're gonna actually go way back on this. Okay. So I'm actually gonna just take and make it a hard light up here as our edge. Yeah, I actually wanted to avoid grabbing the background for this part of the image because I wanted him to be really separated. But I think I just had to tap a little bit in there to get that better blended. It's actually a little rough right here because I want to have it be a line. sort of delineating the plates of the shoulder pad, but it's like you generally don't want a whole lot of lines in something that's very painterly and edgy. Edgy as in lots of edges, not edgy as in, whoa, dude, that's edgy. Now the character isn't jacked at all. He's not ripped or buff, but he's not, you know, he's not like skinny and tiny. Sort of good in between. So for his but for his shoulder muscles, it's gonna be a little more we're actually gonna grab out a lot of shapes for this because of the nature of the artificial arms. Kind of stumbled my way through that sentence slowly. So yeah, because your pec actually does connect to your arm, there's like a little spur on the top of the humerus that the pec connects to. So what we have here is, this is sort of like his pec is coming out, and it's sort of overlapping on top of his that's the grayscale. Grayscale? No, that's just gray coming through on the flat down here. Or is it? Oh, we gotta find what that is. Oh, I did I did it on this layer. So what his arms are actually connected to, they're connected like muscle, because part of this character's like artificial arms are actually very muscle-like, even though they're technically mechanical. I believe the term, straight out of that hugely scientifically accurate movie Independence Day, the little sleeper hit, you might have heard of it, might not have, is biomechanical, as in biomechanical suit. Well, that's the kind of thing I'm going for with his arm. Is a bit of the old biomechan. Oh, poop! His armor is right here. So we're actually gonna take and a mask. Get out the mask. Flip that over. Okay. 21 is his arm. Yeah, it's biomechanical would be his arm. Also, I just want to get this out. I just want to get this out here. I missed the D button again. I just want to get this out of here. Independence Day is a supremely shitty movie. It is some of the schlockiest schlock ever. Like it's almost a little mind-boggling to me, like how popular that movie is. Well, no, I mean I get it. I do actually get why it's popular. But it's just such a like really, this is the movie? This is going to be a popular, this is it? This is like the alien invasion sci-fi that's going to be super notable for like the whole of eternity now. It's also like it's a really 90s movie. The amount of plaid in that movie just annoys me so much. it's like in the, especially in the post Area 51 parts of the movie, when like the characters that were in like suits earlier in the movie like doff the suits for civilian clothing. It's like that civilian clothing is almost always a plaid. It's almost always a plaid shirt with khakis. And it annoys me. Seriously, go watch the movie and watch like the wedding scene. It's like you have Will Smith in the military coveralls, totally fine. But then like I think Jada Pinkett Smith is standing there with is in plaid, and then Jeff Goldblum and the secretary character also both in plaid. Plaid with khakis, and it's like man, this is the grungiest thing since, well, Seattle. And it's like even Seattle's like, whoa, tone it down. 1990 Seattle is like, whoa, Independence Day, tone down the plaid, tone down the khaki. We're putting a little bit of like the sort of pseudo tubing that can happen here. I sort of did it right here in the wrist. So I think I'm gonna do a little bit of it up here as well, just so we have some like little bit of visually interesting things going on there. Like that's maybe it's either a seam or it's a tube or it's something about his it's something on his arms that is visible. It's also a little on the gross side. We don't want it to be perfectly pretty or like chromed out pretty. So we want a little of that good old, like we don't want it to be this, but we do want it to have a little, grossness to it. Now the thing you can't actually see, but is part of the design. Do I have it on a piece of paper? I do. So, I decided to make the elbow, which you can see there, excuse me, kind of pointed, to actually really delineate that this is an artificial thing on him. So I made a sort of elbow spur. It's the second time I've used the word spur here. Because I actually wanted something on his arm to sort of show, oh yeah, this is not something natural that's just covered up by like latex, pleather. This is an actual like different structured thing going on here. So I'm gonna point out something here. I hardly ever name my layers. It seems like it's a point I should maybe bring up because because I'm not naming my layers right now. So it's like, yeah, I actually don't do that. Usually. Sometimes I will. If I'm doing, like, my website design for wolfoverclock.com, for that, I actually did... Is 20 his arm? 21 is where it starts. So I actually did do that a little bit for that. Oh, I think that's grayscale. I'm going to say grayscale a lot when I just mean the gray flat. And I just remembered, since his arm is shiny, we are going to have, like, that's the ground being reflected there, and we're actually going to grab a little bit of this, because I think I'd want to at least have, like, that. There'd be a little, I think. I mean, it doesn't really matter if it would really be there because we're creating. So I'd put a little bit of the reflection of, oh, that might be his armor. Just some, just something bouncing from his, not his armor, his coat onto that. So yeah, I rarely, if ever, name my layers. If I'm doing something extremely layer heavy, like this is turning into, I really don't do it then. It's only if I need it to be like, okay, this is the content area, so I'll name like the first couple layers like content 1, buttons, content 2, that sort of thing. Should probably get the dark, just get the black on there first before I start doing the little detail things. Yep, sometimes you just gotta restart. Thing is, his arm is in fact black. I can't just have it be the highlights, so I keep hitting S instead of D. And I can switch back to brush tool. That happens sometimes as well. Oh, we are seeing a little bit of his fingertips down here. Yeah, that's sort of one of the, oh, that's a shame things about this composition, is you kind of lose his, most of his arm. Got a bit of his hand down here. I'd also intended to put some sort of effect on his hand where you would get sort of an idea of what his abilities would look like a little bit. But we do actually lose that a bit with his with the giant robo hand being in here. I may go in and actually do a lot of detail on his hand. So I could have, like, part of the reason I have him very cut out also is if I want to take his image and use it for something. So with it being like this, we kind of, like, I didn't draw his hand in fully, obviously, so we might go back and do that. It'd be done off camera, I think. I'd spare everyone me like just drawing fingers. Okay, we can. I'm gonna do a new layer here so we can do some little detail tweaks up here. Okay, dokey. What's my time at on this one? Man, it's been a half hour already. It doesn't feel like a half hour. Yeah, some of these feel really quick, some of these don't. But we're definitely getting there. The belt is gonna be a massive pain. Yeah, oh, we can actually see. Oh, that was his knuckles. Okay. Yeah, we can actually see where I went in. So, yeah, his wrist would have gone down here. Let me actually... You know what? I think we'll be fine with that. So, that actually would be where his thumb is. So that's like maybe one of his fingers there. We just need the indication of it. Excuse me while I do another back stretch. Give everyone a view of my Simic Guild t-shirt. I kind of do intend to have the camera pushed back a little, so it's not very tight in on my face anymore. Because but the whole reason I don't is because I don't really want what's behind me to be seen on camera, really. It's just kind of a mess of stacks of boxes and junk that very, very unbefitting any form of professionalism on camera. Because I am super, super, super professional. God fucking damn it. If anyone was thinking this wouldn't be a swearing podcast, they were goddamn wrong. Like I said, it's the only reason I'm not. That's the only reason I wouldn't be considered a Bob Ross in any way, shape, or form. It's a near constant stream of profanity that comes out of my mouth. I'm just super swear man, aren't I? No, I know I shouldn't swear that much. But I mean, I'm an adult. I shouldn't make it a thing in the art videos though. Not to get in this like philosophy on swearing, but I've always been of the mindset that swearing, curses, they're an exclamation, not a rule. Remember, kids, if you curse too much, they lose all meaning. You gotta curse just right. That's my lesson today for everyone. If you're gonna curse, curse correctly. So his belt I should technically do the layering underneath his fur, but think I think what I'm gonna do is copy this lower chunk of it and then just put it on top. And this belt chunks we're actually going to keep very matte. I'm going to go in and any highlight I put on I'm going to basically remove and kick back, because we don't necessarily want everything to be like very leathery looking. Maybe go back there. No. Did I grab the wrong... No, I didn't. So let's break out a mask. Oh, I see what's going on here. Weird copying bug there. Don't exactly know what was going on. I am going to take and pop in a little bit of hair here just so it comes over the belt. Because what it is the hair is actually going to start down here. he has like this solid belt that's sort of higher on his waist, and then he has a sash around that, and then his actual utility belt is going to start around that, and then that actually has stuff hanging on it. So really his hair is going to be the fur of his coat is going to be popping out at the bottom there. This doesn't need a lot. This only needs like just a little bit to get some... That just needs a little touch of stuff to get it like it's a thing. It's not just a flat. Do a new layer here. Now we are going above the fur, because if we add in stuff, we actually want it to be above that. So we're gonna come in here and now the sash is actually not gonna be black, but I'm gonna start it in black because that's just how I've been doing everything so far. Excuse me. So we're gonna. I've been doing this for like 3 hours now. I'm probably gonna take a break for the day after I finish this next 20 minutes or so. We're actually gonna thin this down just a little bit, so it's not as like armored Cumberbunny as it looks. Like, we want him to be able to bend over at the waist still if we need to. Okay. Grab a white. You know, I think going to the palette to get white and black, even though I can just hit, you know, D and X to do that. I think that's got to be a painter thing. I'm just working in traditional media where it's like I can't hit a button and get, you know, black and white together. It's like I have to actually go hit a palette, you know, hit up my palette with a brush or something. It's a funny holdout. And it's even funnier given that I haven't actually traditionally painted in years. Like I said, that sash piece is not actually black. And there's going to be a belt over it, and then this pouch here, and then I think I'm going to put something here. And then I might... we can do this now. I am going to put... I'd like to have the sash have a knot, and actually have it be a piece of hanging cloth. But, you wouldn't actually see the hanging cloth, I think. Maybe a little bit. So we can put that in, actually. Yeah. Technically, I think the next thing we're going to be doing is the bottom part of his coat. Only because we, yeah, I actually think we're going to have to do that next. And it can go right above this layer. Because it's just next... It's like the next thing down. And it can kind of help us define where his leg is as well. Because I believe it would be coming at this angle. So since we're at like the edge of his character, I'm actually debating on what amount of detail I want to put in. I'm actually going to name this layer because I actually don't think I need to do it right now. So, coat bottom. I'm going to turn it off because, and we're actually going to, yeah, I do occasionally name layers. It's not that I don't do it. Sash. So, just so I know where I am. Because I think I actually really need a break right now. I will record, I think it's going to be one more thing. One more video. And I'm going to do it after I do the detail on his lower body. Because what I need to do after that is draw a sword in here. And then do my usual tweaks and adjustments and liquefies and all that stuff. And then I'm going to do a couple weather effects on this image. And maybe a little atmospheric stuff. Okay, so for this final segment, I need snow. And actually, I went ahead and did this already in the piece yesterday, off camera. And I just want to go over the process. Try to remember it from memory. To just to show how I did it. So snow in Photoshop, just straight in Photoshop. The first thing we need is a new layer, and we need to fill it with black. Then what we do is we add noise, and you generally want the monochromatic noise. Well, generally, you're definitely going to want the monochromatic noise. You could alternatively not bother clicking monochromatic and just use Control-Shift-U to desaturate the layer. I mean, that's just another way to do it. Then what we do is we hit levels. No, wait. First what we do is we hit blur more. So blur more. Then we hit levels. And what we want to do here is we want to move the sliders until they're about the white and the black sliders until they're about in the middle here. And it might be hard to see on screen, but you'll end up with this sort of I'm going to do that again. You'll end up with this sort of speckling going on, and I'm generally going to make it tighter than the preview appears. So you generally want it in this, like on the leading edge of your bell curve here. So you end up with almost like a star field, and actually this is kind of how you do a star field as well. The only difference is between snow and a star field. For a star field, you would actually make it so it's a lot darker. And then you would duplicate the layer and then Gaussian blur that layer and then set both to screen. So what we're going to do here, before we set it to screen, we actually do want to hit it with a bit of motion blur. So we do motion blur. We don't need it that much, but you do a little, like maybe 6. And this will give you a blurred snow look. So then we do throw it into screen. It's kind of hard to see it right now because it's on this gray background, but if we darken up the background just a little bit, it should come through a bit more as sort of a bit of a flurry. However, we're not done yet. You duplicate it, go to transform, rotate 180 degrees, and then you do filter, pixelate, and crystallize. And I just have it set to 10. The crystallize window is actually not on my main window. And this will give us our second layer of snow. That'll make it look, even snowier. And actually, you do another filter, blur, motion blur, same values. And now we have sort of a snow field going on. Like it's a very flurry-ish snowing day. But you can take and I think you can just keep doing the levels. You can actually take the levels and and that initial, I have it all here. So before you hit it with the levels, you can actually take and tweak those levels back and forth in order to get less or more snow. The last thing we're doing, though, is I have a snow brush. And I actually need to remake my cloud brush. So we have a snow brush here. So what we do is we have white selected, we have a new layer, And the thing about a snow brush is that it all depends on what your it's selected, right? Okay, it all depends on what you want, how much of the bigger snow flurries you want. So the snow brush is actually going to put down a random pattern of scattered dots. And depending on how numerous you do it, to how big you have the brush, because we can make the brush really, really tiny, and it'll do a really, really tiny bit of scattering of the dots, basically, that are flurries, or you can do it really big, and you'll get really big dots. So in this case, just for this little demonstration, we're gonna kind of get it just a little bigger, maybe like right there, maybe a 175 just for this, and you can go through and I try to get it to where there aren't a lot of overlapping dots. Like that one's overlapping, but I'm just gonna leave it for now. And then for this, I do the same, or I don't do the same motion blur, but I do a motion blur, and I'll actually jump it up a bit. And I don't think screen does. No, screen probably doesn't do anything. So normal, and then I'll actually drop these down. Maybe I'll you can sometimes get away with duplicating them, then doing a Gaussian blur. So there are a lot of ways you can go about doing the snow that's closer to your camera, in addition to snow that's further away from your camera, and you'll end up with a nice snow effect. Now the one thing I'm going to note is the snow effect does really make your file huge, and I would suggest if you're going to put snow on something like this, really try to make it your last step. So we're going to show what I did. I don't need that. So we did snow. We did snow on our piece of artwork. So this is mostly done. I also went in and down here I did his belt details, and I threw his sword in there, and I would say this is predominantly done. I think the one thing I'm gonna do on here still, maybe before I post it, and I'll probably post this as a separate video, is maybe put a little texture on this building back here, just so it has a little more trying to think of the word. I don't want to say realisticness, because I don't really care about super realism. I would say give it a more oomph, more solidity. It's not really a realness. It's more of like this kind of needs just a bit more to make it convincing. And I think there's maybe one or two tweaks around here that I'm gonna do, and I may do a color version. I haven't decided yet, but for now we're gonna leave it in black and white. If I do a color version, it's probably just gonna be posted on its own, because I've done a couple videos that are coloring in Photoshop, and I think I've really covered that to death on just coloring a character. And I mean, I'll probably do more artwork in the near future on how to color a character. But for now, we're gonna leave it black and white, and it's finished, more or less. It's like 99% there. So thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm just gonna combine everything in one video. It's gonna be just one long video of just me blabbering about making this piece of artwork. So thank you for watching. Make sure you go to my Patreon, patreon.com/wolfoverclocked. You can also find me on Twitter, Tumblr, and I just started an Instagram, which has like 2 pictures on it. And it's all at wolfoverclocked, and my main website is wolfoverclocked.com. But again, please support me on Patreon if you enjoy this artwork. I don't want to force anyone to do it. Yeah, my self-esteem is directly tied to subscriptions and my Patreon feed, my Patreon site. So thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you guys next time.